According to the United Nations Women, there are 700 million women in the world who were married as children. 250 million of them under the age of 15, which has left them vulnerable to early pregnancy and, yes, sexual transmitted disease. You know what? Zambia is not exempt to such things. In many of our communities, as women of faith, we have to have difficult conversations about such things. The Bible, especially the New Testament, has a lot to say about treating women fairly and considerately, and about the sanctity of the human body. But for a few moments today, I want us to look at two women in the Old Testament who experienced their bodies being exploited and used by others. I'm of course speaking of Bilhah and Zilpah, the servants, probably slaves actually, of the two sisters, Rachel and Leah, the wives of Jacob. You see, when two sisters marry the same man, not through their own choice, but through their father's scheming, one can well imagine there's going to be a little bit of tension in the family. All of this comes to a head when Leah, remember who's the elder, who Jacob did not really love, kept bearing sons, but Rachel, his true love, could not bear any children. Rachel takes matters into her own hands and tells Jacob to sleep with her servant Bilhah, so that she could at least raise a family through her. Subsequently, Bilhah has two sons, but not to be outdone by her sister. Amazing. Anybody have this kind of competition in your family? Leah gives her servant Zilpah also to Jacob to sleep with, and Zilpah gives birth to two boys. So even if in their culture it might have been an honor to bear the child of a famous person, and we don't actually know that, here are two women who were given no choice about sleeping with their mistress's husband in order to have children. In other words, their bodies were used to bear children without their permission. We call this exploitation. What's amazing to me is that Jacob is complicit in this. In other words, he totally goes along with it, and he thinks it's all right. He could have refused, but he didn't. And the shocking thing is that those who actually planned the whole exploitation were women themselves, Rachel and Leah. You know, sometimes that's also true today in perhaps some of our traditional practices in various countries. The ones who administer particular practices and traditions are the mothers, the aunties, the grandmothers. They're actually exploiting the next generation of young girls. And so Bilhah and Zilpah are representative of all women who've been exploited, all women who've been used, either by men or women, or both. We don't know much about them. Nothing's recorded, except that the Bible identifies them with millions of silent victims of exploitation and abuse, whose voices are never openly heard. But the story doesn't end there. One of Bilhah's boys was named Naphtali. And if you fast forward 3,000 years to when Jesus began his earthly ministry, read Matthew chapter 4, because it tells us Jesus fulfills a prophecy of Isaiah in the land of Naphtali. Isn't that amazing how God can weave something which is so terrible and tragic and redeem it for something good? Because Jesus then declares in that chapter of Matthew that the people living in darkness have seen a great light. So today, as you think of those who've been exploited or used, or perhaps you've been a victim of that yourself, or you know someone or care for someone who has, remember that the Lord takes note of them, and he works his righteousness and his justice in his time. Psalm 103, verse 6. How does he work that righteousness and justice? Through you and I, speaking out and allowing voices to be heard. God bless you.